Welcome everyone to our third quarter 2023 Governor's Workforce Council meeting. I'd like to welcome our council members as well as our many community government and business partners for today's meeting. And just quick reminder of kind of how best to participate in the meeting. As you have questions or want to make comments, you have several options. You can use the raise hand option in your screen, and we will try to call on you. You can also type into the chat. We'd also, appreciate people just identifying themselves and what organization they represent if they are with an organization. And then we'll do our best to recognize as many people as we can. So I want to just talk about kind of our focus today. Our primary focus today is to continue the process of updating our workforce strategic plan for the state. We will also hear important updates from Workforce Commissioner Kelli Vallieres on the progress of our current initiatives. We will hear from Patrick Flaherty from the Department of Labor on the current labor market situation. There were new numbers that were released today, so we're excited to hear that. We will have Commissioner Charlene Russell-Tucker from the State Department of Education, who will provide an update on the great work that SDE is doing in career pathways. And that will actually set the stage for one of our breakout groups today that will focus on the pathways from education and training to quality jobs. After the presentations, we will have breakout groups on the three pillars of our plan: career pathways, sector training, and industry leadership. Based on the input that we get today and that we got from our last meeting, we are going to be working this summer, the rest of the summer and into the fall, to develop a draft of revisions to our plan and recommendations, which we will expect to share and review and vote on at our October meeting, so that we can then complete the process of writing it and reviewing it with the governor and the legislature. So that's kind of our plan. First up for the meeting today is some voting. We have 3 roll call votes today. And you can see here actually the agenda is in front of you. We're going to be doing those votes. Then we will do, as I said, the OWS report, labor market, State Department of Education, and the breakouts, and then come back together. So if you want to jump to the next page. So the 3 votes are going to be, the first is going to be voting on restructuring our committee structure for the Governor's Workforce Council, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Our second vote is going to be on allocations of our governor's reserve from our WIOA funding. And the third will be to approve minutes. So let's go to the next page and just talk about that first vote. So this picture here kind of shows our proposed committee structure. Essentially, we're going to get to that in a second, based on the strategic blueprint, which is on the right here, which you've seen in a couple of the prior meetings. And it really reflects the connectivity between our different strategic priorities, our key stakeholders, our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and the fact that all of our decision-making is going to be data-based. And of course, we want to, as a result of this, really align the workforce development system that we all operate in. Please move to the next page. We're proposing in this first vote to move from the current 6 committee structure to 7. And this is not really a major change, but it is required in our bylaws to actually have a vote on it. In this, the WIOA committee in yellow would become the Workforce Development Alignment Committee in order to be inclusive of all the workforce partners and efforts underway to work collaboratively and build equitable pathways to employment. We're also proposing splitting number 5, the business leadership and sector training, into separate committees. The sector training is very much focused on all the kind of job training programs that we're doing right now. And the industry leadership is going to be focused on a lot of the changes that we need to see with employers around skills-based hiring and getting engaged with work-based learning and career pathway programs. Obviously, all these committees overlap, but we think this will be kind of a more effective structure going forward. We'll come back to this in a second in terms of voting. Next, if you flip one more page, the second vote is really on the WIOA governor's reserve allocation. And that comes in 2 parts. There's first of all the actual kind of allocations to the workforce boards. We did that by e-vote, and I'd like to announce that those allocations passed with 31 yeses, and 1 abstention, no negatives, 16 non-responders. So that vote passed, and now we are going to be voting on the governor's reserve. And you can see up here a view of last year versus this year in terms of what's being proposed for the $5.3 million, which is at the bottom of the chart to the right. And a lot of the money, the bulk of it at the top is for managing the overall kind of WIOA system, which is largely done through the Department of Labor. There's also money there for the apprenticeship support, managing ETPL and other performance and accountabilities. And that's pretty similar, although there are some changes in terms of classification of different people in those first 3 items. But it's basically kind of very similar, not really a big change. In terms of if you go to numbers 3 and number 4, we are proposing $911,000 for additional money to support American Job Centers. And we're proposing $883,000 for specific projects supporting the WIOA system. If we go to the next page, we're going to kind of explain what that $883,000 is. So basically, there are kind of 3 specific focuses for that $883,000. The first is systems improvements, and those include evaluation and investment in to improve access to all the state's workforce development resources, such as CT hires, expansion of the Career Connect portal, and other tools. The second item is around career pathways, and this is to provide support to expand work-based learning, apprenticeships, summer youth employment, that really will provide more opportunities to align students and employers. And the third area is improvements to the customer experience in the American Job Centers. And this was funding to the workforce development boards to improve customer experience and the digital kind of, support for customers, for clients. So this is the second vote. And then the third, we'll be voting on the meeting minutes which you have gotten an advance copy of from our Q2 meeting. And before we do a roll call on these 3 votes, before we do that, I'm just going to say, the way we're going to work this is we're going to do a roll call and ask you to vote. If you want to say yes on all, you can say yes on all. If you would like to vote on each of these separately, you can do that as well. Now, before we move to the roll call, we will need a motion and a second from a council member for each of the 3 votes. So for the first vote on changing the committee structure, can we have a first?
So moved. Michelle James.
Who's that?
Michelle
Thank
James.
you. And do we have a second?
Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie. On the second vote, which is around the WIOA Governor's Reserve allocations, can we have a motion?
So moved. This is Amy Porter.
Thank you, Amy. Do we have a second?
Second, this is Ray Pino.
Thank you, Ray. And then finally, the third, which is the vote on the minutes. Can we have a motion? Can we have a first?
So moved, Kelli Vallieres.
Thank you, Kelly. Can we have a second on approving?
Second, Peter Salovey.
Thank you, Peter. So now I'm going to do the roll call vote.
Mark, could we have discussion before we go to?
I'm sorry, I didn't offer that. Thank you.
That's okay. Open to discussion here on all 3 of those. Sure. This is Amy Porter. Thank you for that. And thanks for the explanation. I just had one follow-up to a comment that you made. So you talked about the changes in committee structure and the fact that they overlap, and clearly they're all going to overlap in some ways. So what is the mechanism for bringing that information together? So for example, you talk about diversity, equity, you talk about access for people with disabilities. It obviously has an impact in each of the other committees. So how does that all get brought together in a way that we make sure that we're able to look at that in a holistic way?
It's a really great point. I mean, one of the things that we've done in the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access Committee is come up with a set of plans for each of the subcommittees within that, which really kind of focus on the needs of different populations. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is really making sure that each of the other committees, especially the career pathways sector and business leadership and the workforce system, that they actually review and see those plans so that they're incorporated into the work that they do, to the initiatives that are planned in each of those areas.
Mark, I would also add that Anthony Barrett is leading all of those work. And so he is also participating in these other discussions, as well as working with those who are sitting on his committees to also kind of spread out and have representation in the 3 committees that are in purple. And then the executive committee is made up of people who are from each of those subcommittees. So it rolls up to the executive committee in that way as well. And if you have any other suggestions, we would be happy to hear them and incorporate them into the work. The most important component of the work that we're doing is really making sure that we're focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we've thought about from time to time is actually having some, individuals in more than one committee to provide that too. That's another thing that we certainly could consider to kind of increase the communication between these, committees.
Great, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Okay, not seeing anybody, I am going to do roll call vote. I'm going to call on myself first and say yes to all. Kelli Vallieres.
Yes to all.
Alexandra Dome or somebody else from DECD. Amy Porter.
Yes to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Anthony Medici. Brian Doubles or somebody from Synchrony.
Hi, Mark. George Anderson, yes to all.
Thank you, George. Commissioner Russell Tucker.
Thank you. Yes to all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Christy Pentima. Chris O'Connor. Cindy Bigelow. Commissioner Bartolomeo, who I know is not here, or somebody else from Department of Labor.
This is Patrick Flaherty. I'll vote yes to all.
Thank you, Patrick. Ed Hawthorne. Erica Smith. Jay Williams. Jeff Walker.
Yes to all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, no problem.
Jeff Flax. Or somebody else from Hartford Healthcare. John Murphy. Joseph Gianni.
Good afternoon, Mark. Yes to all.
Thank you, Joe. Judy Olean.
Bethany Zamba for Judy Olean. Yes to all. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Kathy Szilard.
Mark, this is Sal Mancino. Yes to all in her place.
Thank you, Sal. Carrie Hone.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Leslie Torres Rodriguez.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Leticia Colon de Mejas. Maggie Hulse.
Yes to all.
Thank you, Maggie. Marty Guay. Michelle James.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Molly Kellogg. Dr. Manette Ferguson.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Neil O'Leary. Mayor Neil O'Leary, sorry. Paul Costello.
Yes to all, Mark.
Peter Nystrom, Mayor Peter Nystrom. Peter Salve.
Yes to all.
Thank you. Radenka Merrick. Ray Penault.
Yes to all.
Thank you, Ray. Rohan Freeman. Sal Menzo.
Yes to all.
Thank you, Sal. Shane Eddy. Sharon Barr. Sean Coyne.
Yes to all.
Thank you, Sean. Shelley Davis. Sirish Malthaswamy. Steve Sullivan or
Jonathan Harris.
Jonathan Harris.
Designate for Steve Sullivan, yes to 1 and 2, abstain from 3, as I was not at that meeting.
Okay. Representative Walker. Terrence Chang or his designee. Tiana Ocasio. Tawanda Talley Rushing. Wes Alexander. So we are going to, I don't know whether we had enough votes for quorum for these things. We will get back to you on that. But in terms of the meeting now, I have the pleasure to call on Kelli Vallieres, our Chief Workforce Officer, to provide her report to the council.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's exciting to see all of you here. I'm excited to share with you some of the great things that are happening as OWS works with our many stakeholders and partners across our state agencies, our community-based organizations, and our academic partners and our legislature to be able to have the privilege to do this work on behalf of the state in those partnerships. I'd also like to take a moment to congratulate CT State on their accreditation as a single community college system. So a lot of hard work in 7 years, and the hard work doesn't stop. It's now just a new beginning. And I'd like to also welcome Dr. Levy Brown, who's going to be leading some of the programming and the work at the new CT State. It's my pleasure to give you an update on Career Connect. As a quick reminder, this is our $70 million investment of state ARPA dollars from the legislature and Governor Lamont. And we're very excited that, a few short months into this program, it started in November with a few early program providers getting a jump start, but our programs didn't really start in earnest until the end of January. And you'll see now that we have 9,600 people registered in our portal. Of that, almost 5,000 have completed the skills inventory, which is required to move on to get placed into training programs. And we have had 3,600 who have passed the inventory. And the skills inventory is meant to just give us an understanding of the skills that people have coming into the portal, and they'll be able to take that again and get remediation to be able to score on those. So it's not to screen them out, it's to ensure that they have the right skills to be successful in us supporting those skill deficiencies. So you'll see on the next slide that programs are happening and rolling out. We have 1,600 people enrolled in training programs out of our goal of 2,200 for the year. Of those, 800 people have completed training, and of that, 500 people have been placed in jobs. Just a quick reminder, these job training programs are varying in length and scheduling of when they come online and when they finish. So we're always going to have a level of people kind of moving from one category to the next. But we're very excited with the success of the programs and want to thank all of our grantees for their continued work and effort to ensure that these programs are very successful. And as we continue to launch new programs and move through this process, we're going to continuously be making improvements to the wiring and the connectivity to make sure that these programs are first in class all the way across the board, and people are coming out with the skills that are in demand by industry. So thank you again for that, and we're looking forward to sharing more information as the programs progress. I wanted to give another quick update on our Good Jobs Challenge. As a reminder, this is our $23.9 million award from the Economic Development Agency. So currently we are finishing the contracts through the AG's office and the scope of work with the 10 regional sector partnerships that are receiving funding here. I know it sounds like it's been kind of a long process, and it has, but we meet regularly with the Good Jobs Challenge federal team, and we are on target with regards to where we're at with the implementation as to the other states are. And we do know that we're going to have to go back and get at least a 1-year no-cost extension on these programs. But we're really excited about the partnerships and the projects that are going to be happening and launching in earnest this fall. So thank you again to everyone who participates in our regional sector partnerships and this process. And if you are not in a regional sector partnership, please join one, because they're a highly valuable place for connectivity with all things around workforce and all of the other issues that businesses grapple with to ensure that they can grow and thrive in Connecticut. The next slide, please. And I'm going through these quickly. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat, and the team will be happy to kind of answer those questions in the chat. Each month, I'm going to focus on a specific industry and what is kind of some of the big things that are happening within this industry. And today, I'm going to focus on our healthcare regional sector partnerships and the work that's being done in this industry sector. As you all know, we launched CT Health Horizons last fall with a call for proposals. Again, thank you to our state legislators and especially Senator Austin for supporting this program. We will be adding 130 faculty to healthcare and mental health programs across the state in many different institutions. And I'll list those. There is a list of them on another slide if you're interested in knowing who they all are. And we'll be able to increase the participation in those programs by 1,200 seats. And we'll be able to provide 1,700 students with tuition support. And we're going to be launching 2 new nursing programs. So we're very excited about the work that's happening here. And I wanted to take a brief moment to acknowledge and bring on Rocco Orlando. He's the Chief Academic Officer at Hartford Healthcare, to speak about their partnerships and engaging with the CT Health Horizons and the regional sector partnership work. So Rocco, thank you for joining us today.
Kelly, thanks very much, and thanks for the chance to talk to the council. So I'll give you a very high-level summary of the work that we're doing, and it's really a story that begins 3.5 years ago, immediately before the pandemic, when Jeff Flax asked me to create a new role at Hartford Healthcare as a Chief Academic Officer. And really very forward-looking, and recognition to Jeff for that, for seeing that workforce with the pandemic would be really a crisis in healthcare workforce. And so we lost a little time from the pandemic, but we are working aggressively with our university partners to increase the supply in the variety of programs. The whole key here and the nature of the partnership is we, as a large healthcare organization, and essentially we are a non-university teaching organization. We need to provide experiential learning opportunities for students to enter the health professions, and to do that in partnership with our Connecticut-based university partners. So we have really embarked upon stronger, tighter, and more explicit affiliation agreements with our university partners, with UConn, not just our historical connection to the School of Medicine over 50 years now, but Quinnipiac University, Connecticut State, Sacred Heart University. So we have really recrafted these agreements, made them tighter, and really made commitments that we would increase the number of opportunities we would have for students working with these partners to hope to grow the programs. And again, our self-serving interest is we would like to see students become our employees as we look at these critical shortages. Let me highlight 2 just at a very high level for you. One with Connecticut State, an innovative partnership with Eastern Connecticut State University, which in Connecticut, Eastern Connecticut turns out to be the toughest area for nursing shortages. So we approached the leadership at ECSU and said, you guys have all the health sciences, you don't have a nursing program, we would provide the clinical resources, can we do this together? So that has been a go. Eastern is starting a brand new baccalaureate nursing program. We are contributing the space at Wyndham Hospital for a simulation center. Simulation is essential to healthcare education. And we're also matching the Connecticut Health Horizons funding a financial investment as well to build out that simulation center. And the beauty of that is the Wyndham Hospital and Eastern are 2 blocks apart. So the physical contiguity just works. And so we're very excited about that program. The other one that I would highlight would be our partnership with Quinnipiac University, which is really a broad university-wide partnership. So it includes the schools of medicine, nursing, their School of Health Sciences, but also the areas that you wouldn't think of as healthcare, computing and engineering, communications. These are finance, School of Business, School of Law. These are all areas that the healthcare system, we need folks in those disciplines as well. So we're thinking very broadly, not just about what you think is the traditional areas of providing healthcare. And so we do have a broad affiliation agreement, and again, with many successes, again, growing those opportunities. In the School of Medicine, for example, we are building new residency programs for physicians. So there will be a new family medicine training program, a new psychiatry program. We're going to bring those to Litchfield County, to Charlotte-Hungerford, an area that you would never have thought in the past would be a place that you would train doctors, but we're embarking on that and doing that. Those are just a couple examples. There are many as we look to increase that. And I think our commitment from Hartford Healthcare, our history had been that we had teaching hospitals and non-teaching hospitals. On a go-forward basis in the future, we really can't afford to have any non-teaching sites. Our entire organization has to become a teaching organization. So our traditionally community hospitals, community practices, the multiple sites of service, we are looking forward to bringing students into all of those locations as the whole organization becomes a teaching organization. So I will stop there with that very high level overview.
Thank you so much, Rocco. That is amazing work that's happening. And it's really exciting to see how programs like CT Health Horizons and the regional sector partnerships really provide opportunities for business engagement and growth, and your matching contributions and developing of new programs is really amazing. Thank you for your partnership. I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
I'd also like to congratulate the workplace. They have been awarded a $3 million grant to expand their entry-level healthcare professionals to obtain nursing degrees. So this is really exciting because it allows that continuation of people who come into entry-level positions in healthcare to then move forward into those higher in demand and higher wage nursing degrees. So thank you for your continued commitment to the healthcare industry from the workplace. And you can see the list of their partners there. And I would also like to highlight again, the work that's happening in our regional sector partnerships. Right now, we have more than 120 participating organizations across 4 healthcare regional sector partnerships. And I wanted to take the time to share with you a little bit about how these partnerships work together to address the needs of a region. And with that, I would like to introduce and invite Diane Manning, President and CEO of United Services, to share a little bit about the work that she's doing also in Eastern Connecticut. Not planned today, but very interesting how Eastern Connecticut is getting a lot of love here these days. Thank you for sharing, Diane.
Thank you, Kelli. I'm talking about something that came together over the last several months as the Eastern Connecticut Healthcare Partnership, as we call ourselves, has gotten together to look at the workforce issues in Eastern Connecticut, and that's pretty much defined as Wyndham County, New London County, and parts of Tolland and Middlesex counties. And as we talked, what's really been interesting with this regional sector partnership is the hospitals, the nursing homes, the emergency services response companies, the behavioral health providers, the FQHCs have all come to the conclusion that we had some basic areas that we were really facing workforce shortages. And as we started to drill down as teams at looking at how that happened, we discovered that there were some areas, one in particular, that we did not have adequate training, and that was the masters in social work, as the call for behavioral health care, mental health care in schools, in throughout the community has expanded. We did not have a way to bring professionals into that space. And so we talked about the problem, trying to find an MSW program, and the partnership worked with the other members of the partnership. And we discovered that there were 6 MSW programs in the state. They were part of they were working together to try to get more programming out, but the programming was all inaccessible for individuals who lived and worked in Eastern Connecticut because all of it was west of the Connecticut River. And so we started trying to think about how we could do something a little bit differently, and how we could keep our staff that were already working in mission-focused healthcare agencies, how we could allow them and support them in expanding and furthering their careers. So we reached out to the University of St. Joseph, who had received some funding through the Connecticut Health Horizons program, and they were just in the process of announcing their partnership with Mitchell College in New London. But if you live in northeastern Connecticut, New London's still a long way away, and also still relatively inaccessible for someone who's working 40 hours a week. So we reached out and asked if there was something we could do to expand that footprint, that educational footprint, into northeastern Connecticut as well. And allow it to be, because some of the people who work in southeastern Connecticut live in the Northeast and vice versa. So we wanted to bring that all together. The providers got together and tried to figure out what we could bring to the table as well. So we were offering space, preceptors for interns, and potentially some adjunct faculty, because we have experienced licensed clinical social workers that might be able to help with faculty positions. We would allow our staff the time to get to classes, to work on their education, and flexible schedules. We would help with marketing to our employees, and we would provide internships in-house and within each other's programs to make that happen. In St. Joseph's, I reached out, and I think it was less than 48 hours later, thanks to Rona Free, the president of St. Joseph's, she reached out to me and said, we can make this work. And we met with her senior leadership out in Eastern Connecticut, talked about what this might look like. They had a proposal back with it laid out in less than a week. Yesterday, we had put information out to all of the employers in the Eastern Connecticut Healthcare Partnership for their employees. We had 45 people that were signed up as potentially interested in this. Yesterday afternoon, University of St. Joseph's did an online information session. 25 people were on that session ready to sign up. And August 2nd, we will have an on-site program for people to go through the admissions process, with an expedited admissions process, with someone from financial aid there, so that they can complete the process. And by the end of that week, people will know if they can start their MSW journey at the end of August. So in a month, they'll be on their journey to that MSW. It is phenomenally exciting. I can't tell you how important this is to the behavioral health workforce, and I can't tell you how much the partnership with University of St. Joseph's really means to us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Diane, and all of your partners for that amazing work. And I think it's just a real great example of how, when we get people with shared interests at a table, the things that we can accomplish together through those collaborations. And we're excited to be able to support that work through the work that we're doing with the regional sector partnerships. So thank you again, and congratulations. It's amazing work. I do want to just take another moment to thank, again, everyone who participates, but a special shout out to Ben Stang. Ben has been working with Social Venture Partners to really lead up and heard all of these amazing projects together and over the finish line for Social Venture Partners. And Ben is going to be joining the Yale team at the end of this month. But we wouldn't be here with all of these great projects without Ben's work and leadership in here. So I wanted to make sure that he gets a special shout out and a lot of love. So thank you so much, Ben. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and we know that you're going to do great things. And this is just the beginning of our long-term relationship, I'm sure. I also wanted to congratulate the Department of Labor. They received a $2.9 million grant from the U.S. Department of Labor to support enhancements in our workforce data sharing. And this is a really important aspect of our work, because we know that all of the work that we do needs to be grounded in data. And currently data is kind of spread out across many different institutions and agencies, and it gets really difficult to pull all of that information together. So this grant will be supporting a fairly significant research study that is in collaboration with DOL, the Office of Policy and Management through the P20 WIN system, and our office and our other stakeholders. So we're really excited about this project, and thank you to DOL for all your hard work to bring this across the finish line. And then last but not least, I wanted to just do a brief sprint through our legislative session that we had. And again, thank you to our appropriation chairs and our legislators for the confidence that you have in OWS by providing a significant budget expansion that is really needed to ensure that the Office of Workforce Strategy has the full-time staff to be able to continue to work on all of these projects and grow this work. So thank you for that. And we will be maintaining our status as an independent agency, but we will be for administrative purposes only under the Department of Economic and Community Development, and they are an amazing partner. We consider workforce development a really central premise to community development. So that partnership will be continues to be a strong one, and will be even strengthened with this APO status. There's also 8 other pieces of legislation related to OWS. We have them all listed here over the next 2 slides for you with a brief overview and due dates. We have quite a few reports and working groups to bring together. We're very excited about the work on the Career Accelerator project, and having an additional 3 members of our joining our Workforce Council. And so these will be available to you in the website when we post the slides. And so if you have any questions or you're interested in participating on any of these work groups, and Laura, if you want to flip to the next page, we would be happy to help you. So just please reach out either through the chat or through our email address. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have. And I wanted to make sure that we gave Patrick enough time to go through the amazing information he's going to share with us on labor market data. Again, thinking that data is grounding all of the decisions and the work that we do at OWS with our partners. So thank you, Patrick, and take it away.
There we go. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, everybody, and good afternoon. Very happy to be here. And that's working. Let's see here. All right. Do you see the DOL logo? Excellent. All right. Fantastic. So good afternoon. Very happy to be here today. It was an exciting morning in a sense. We did release our June employment and unemployment numbers, and I'll talk a little bit about that and some of the other great information, or I hope it's great information that we have to share with you this afternoon. So first of all, the unemployment rate in Connecticut is very low. We're at 3.7%. We did spend a little bit of time above the national level last year, but we're now right in line with the nation. The nation's at 3.6, but the difference between 3.6 and 3.7 is really statistically insignificant, and it's very low. We're back to pre-pandemic levels in terms of the unemployment rate. Overall, our jobs are 96.4% recovered from the COVID shutdown, with the private sector 98% recovered. We're so that's where we stand compared to 2020. our warehousing and transportation sector much larger than it was before the pandemic. Our retail sector smaller. This has just been a long-term change in the way people shop. The smiley boxes come to my house too. I think that many of us have been participating in that change. The professional and scientific and technical services, which is well above pre-pandemic levels. That's where the IT jobs are, the consultants, engineers, research, a lot of important activities in that. The one area of, I think, long-term concern for the state from a jobs perspective is the finance sector. That has been in a long-term downward trend from employment for several years. The pandemic really had no effect on that. And turning to 2023, we've had actually very good growth. So we reported this morning job loss in April. Job loss in June, but it was after a very, very strong May increase. Part of the problem is that we are reporting data seasonally adjusted. That's what our partners at BLS would like us to do, because in general, seasonally adjusted data gives you a better sense of long-term trends. But as my former boss, Nick Perna, used to say, we live in a not seasonally adjusted world, and not seasonally adjusted jobs grew in May, jobs grew again in June. It's just they didn't grow as much in June as they usually do because so much hiring happened in May. Schools let out a little bit earlier this year. And so a lot of the students who take summer jobs in restaurants and places like that got hired up in May. And so we saw this big jump in May. And then when June came along, we had less hiring than usual, and the seasonal factors turned that into a loss. But overall, 2023, we're off to a very good start. In fact, the number of jobs added so far this year is more than we've added in any first 6 months of a year for any pre-pandemic year going back to 2005. So we had a very good, strong start to 2023. The one concern about 2023 is the manufacturing actually has kind of taken a little bit of a step back the last few months. It did gain a little bit in May and in June, but overall this year we're a little bit behind where we were in December. And that was after a very, very good year. 2022, we actually added more jobs in manufacturing than in any year for which we have data going back to 1990. So we had a very good year in manufacturing last year, and this year we're off to kind of a slow start. I think that what's happening is that we're just seeing some of that retirement that we've been talking about for a long time overtaking the hiring that's happening. We know there's a lot of hiring happening in manufacturing, and yet it's like a bathtub. If you have too many people who are retiring, and you aren't replacing them fast enough, we end up with this little bit of a decline that we've seen so far in 2023 in terms of manufacturing. Does somebody have a question, or no? Just keep going, I guess. So we get official numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics with regard to openings and turnover. Unfortunately, they're a little bit lagged. The latest numbers we have are through April. The May numbers actually will come out next week. But as of April, we had officially 100,000 job openings, driven by the fact that so many people are basically quitting one job to take another. So if you look at the chart on the right, the number of quits, that's basically saying that 35,000 people a month quit their job in Connecticut. That is a very rapid pace of turnover. The vast majority of the people who are quitting their job are taking another. This creates the large number of openings. It also kind of puts our monthly snapshot into context. When we say that in May, jobs grew by 5,000 jobs, which was a huge number for a net change, you realize that even that's only a seventh of the type of turnover that we usually have. And a more usual type of job growth in Connecticut is about 1,000 a month. That would be considered a very good month if jobs went up by 1,000. And as you can see, the number of people quitting one job to take another is much more rapid than that. So the pace of this is the reality of the labor market, that the flow is much greater than the net. And there's just a lot of turnover that happens every single month. And so sometimes when we hear about, a particular company, hiring a whole lot of people, and then we don't see that in the monthly change, it's because the hiring is part of this 35,000 change that's sort of happening on a monthly basis, and it's doesn't necessarily move the needle as much as we might hope. We, in addition to the official statistics that we are part of, we subscribe to a service through the conference board called Help Wanted Online. This is data that is produced by scraping job boards, the big ones that we know about, Monster, Indeed, but also the corporate boards. They deduplicate and they try to give us a comprehensive data set of all the job postings that are out there. So this data is a little more timely. We have data through June, perhaps not quite as rigorous as the BLS methodology, but it gives us the same type of picture. There we have about 90,000 job postings in Connecticut, as you can see, in a wide variety of industries, and no surprise given the presentations we've had earlier this afternoon, the largest sector in terms of job postings right now is in healthcare. But as you can see, it's a wide range of industries. The data on the education level, it's actually looking into the text of the job postings and trying to decide what level of education is being asked for. And as you can see, almost half of the job postings, the algorithm isn't able to quite assign an education category. So the education breakdown needs to be taken with a grain of salt. But as you can see, about half the jobs that are in demand right now require some sort of college degree, and about half don't. At least in terms of the job postings, where we're able to assign an educational category. The occupations with the most postings, again, it's probably no surprise to anyone that we have thousands of job postings right now for registered nurses in the state. But as you can see, there's a wide range of occupations that, again, many of them revolve around healthcare, but also in a variety of other industries. Software developers is near the top, over 1,500 job postings for software developers in Connecticut right now. And again, a wide range of high-skilled, low-skilled, middle-skilled jobs in demand right now in Connecticut. And on the right, we see the employers that have the most postings. Now that with over 90,000 job postings, there are hundreds and hundreds of employers that aren't going to fit on this slide, many of them looking for 1 or 2 or 3 people. But it's not a shocker that some of the largest companies in our state are also right now trying to hire the greatest number of workers. And something that we're all working on, and we certainly are meeting with folks from the governor's workforce cabinet and others to really talk about how to make this data more useful. We can go into the texts of the job postings and sort of identify particular credentials that are being asked for in job postings. So this is, again, the June job postings in Connecticut. Looking at the text of the job postings, what is actually being asked for. Part of the challenge is that there are so many, and it is very difficult to think of even a group as diverse as the Governor's Workforce Council being able to figure out how to create training programs for every single one of the credentials that are being looked for right now by employers in Connecticut. But it does at least give us a sense of the wide range of credentials. It is interesting that driver's license is being required by so many job postings in Connecticut right now, because that might be a barrier to employment for some who are currently looking for a job. But as you can see, there's a wide range of credentials, certifications that are being requested by folks in the current job postings in the state. So I know that was kind of a quick run through. I don't know if there's a way to have questions asked, or if there's any feedback that anyone has. I'm not sure how this works at this point in the meeting, but I'm certainly happy to talk to anyone from the council. My phone number and my email address are here. We have a wide range of data and information that we're always happy to share with Governor's Workforce Council members and other interested folks.
Are there any questions for Patrick? please kind of raise your hand or indicate in the chat that if you have a question. I see a question here. Is there any data on, this is from Merrill Gay, is there any data on information on female participation in the labor market, Patrick?
Yes, there is.
Men versus women?
What? Yes.
Comparing
So
men versus women?
yes. So Connecticut, we have a very high labor force participation rate, both for men and women. Our female labor force participation rate, the gap between Connecticut and the nation is actually a little bit wider. So we have a little bit stronger participation. Another data set that we have has to do with payroll employment. And in fact, in Connecticut, there are more women in payroll jobs than there are men. Men are actually a larger part of the labor force, but they're more likely to be self-employed, to be independent contractors. And so when you look at folks who actually have a job in Connecticut, there are more women than men in payroll employment today. So yes, the answer is yes. And I certainly have more detail in terms of, say, age breakdown and things like that, that I would be happy to share with whoever asked the question, or if that's a particular topic to explore at a future meeting, I'm happy to provide more detail.
Okay. Other questions for Patrick? Okay.
Well, since I have one more minute here to continue on that, we did see a real concern earlier in the pandemic when women who are of the age group most likely to have young children really did leave the labor force. There is some of that that seems to have been alleviated in recent months, but there still may be some area where greater access to childcare or overcoming some of those other barriers might see that labor force participation rate back to pre-pandemic levels.
I see another question from Maggie Hulse. Any trends in independent contractor or 1099 work, Patrick?
Well, there was a lot of discussion around this actually before the pandemic in terms of, the whole idea about the gig economy. It does seem that some of that was a little bit over exaggerated. And in fact, the vast majority of workers are still in payroll employment. There has been some growth in this other type of work arrangements, but it hasn't been quite as dramatic as was discussed, I would say, maybe 5 years ago. So there was some idea that was going to be a growing part of the economy, and it really has kind of plateaued at, there was sort of a jump up when certain, like the ride sharing companies and others became quite prevalent, maybe 5 years ago or so, but there really hasn't been any upward trend since then.
And another question in the chat is, are startups identified as a separate component within the employment reports?
We don't have any data that we publish on that. I will tell you though that the number of business registrations in Connecticut is really been at a record pace. It really started to pick up in 2020, right after we started coming out of the pandemic, but it has not slowed down. So every quarter we are getting many more business registrations than we ever have before. Part of that, though, is that because of remote work, we have people who are working in Connecticut for companies that might be headquartered in other states within the nation. They do need to register with the Department of Labor to create a UI account. So even if it's just one person in their house working for a company that, say, is headquartered in Chicago, they will have to register as a business in Connecticut. And so it's hard to know exactly how much of the volume of business registrations we're seeing is just that type of work arrangement, and how much of it is really startup companies that are really going to be growing into the future. That is certainly an area we're very interested in and we're going to be watching, but I don't have anything in particular to tell you today other than we're seeing a large volume of business registrations.
And then one other question I see from Representative Farrar. Do we have data on the wages of the jobs that are open in order to look deeper at which jobs, whether kind of the jobs that have family sustaining wages are growing or decreasing?
We certainly have a lot of information about wages, and all I can tell you is that if you look at the variety of industries, the variety of occupations that are growing, we certainly can see some, it's a yes or no answer. Registered nurses, quite frankly, make a pretty good living. The fast food workers, quite frankly, do not. And we're seeing growth in all those types of occupations, and the software developers making a pretty good living. Some of the other occupations, not so much. So again, we have a great deal of detailed wage information. I don't think there's a way to characterize it as one type is growing more than others. We're seeing 90,000 job openings in a wide variety of occupations and industries, and we're seeing growth across a variety of sectors within our economy.
Right. Well, Patrick, thank you very much for that insightful information, which really helps guide our efforts here today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Commissioner Russell Tucker from the State Department of Education, who's going to give a presentation on career pathways and the excellent work her team is doing on that front. Commissioner?
Thank you so much, Mark, and I certainly appreciate the ability to be here with the Governor Workforce Council members and other participants. And we will go through a brief presentation. There's so much that we can talk about happening in the K-12 space. What you're seeing on the screen is our intro slide, and you're wondering what's that really cool logo that's there. This is the logo and the branding for the 22-23 school year that was. The sky is not the limit, basically suggesting that we've got infinite possibilities, or students have infinite possibilities, as do our school staff, for the work that we need to accomplish together. What I'd like to do today with members of the team is to share a few things with you. And so on the next slide, you'll see the agenda that we will be covering for you. First, the ways that the department is supporting career pathways and workforce readiness. And you'll hear from Keith Norton, our Chief Strategic Planning Officer, very briefly on that front. Workforce and career readiness survey results. We recognize the need to know what's actually happening in our school districts on the ground. And so we launched a survey to gather that information. You'll hear preliminary results from that because it is still ongoing, from Karen Amaker, who's one of our new members here at the department, who's the Director of Workforce and Career Readiness. Just that title and personnel shows you our commitment in that space as well. And finally, the bulk of the time, we'll talk about the Dual Credit Opportunities Expansion Grant, the $3.7 million, thanks to the governor, also in that space, and to let you know where we are and what we're seeing there. And that will be done by Ajit Gopalakrishnan, our Chief Performance Officer. So with that, we know we've got tight time, so we're moving this right along with the first part of the presentation by Keith. Keith, take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Keith Norton. I'm the Chief Strategic Planning Officer for the Department of Education. Today, I'm pleased to share with you the Department of Education's 15 Ways document, which outlines many of the ways that the CSD is supporting career pathways and workforce readiness. This document will be dropped in the chat for your review, which will also provide more details. At the Department of Education, next slide, please. We understand the importance of investment and funding. The CSDE manages and oversees federal and state entitlement, competitive, and supplemental grants to educate and prepare students for the workforce, including those for Perkins 5, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, better known as WIOA, and adult education. In addition, we've allocated $5.5 million in federal pandemic relief funding to expand dual credit work offerings in our high schools and allow students to earn college credits for post-secondary degrees and credits aligned with critical job skills. My colleague Ajit Gopalakrishnan will speak more to that shortly. The department is also dedicated to professional learning. The CSDE offers professional learning and resources to align training programs from adult education providers with industry sectors of local workforce development boards. We also, in partnership with the National Restaurant Association, offer Safe Serve certification training to teachers to increase their knowledge and better prepare students for earning their Safe Serve certifications. Next slide, please. Agency staff dedicated significant time to career technical education, better known as CTEs, computer science, and curricula development. For example, the agency's Today's Skills, Tomorrow's Careers program assists districts in driving the pathways and programs of study and occupational areas of growth pertaining to Connecticut's long-term industry and occupational projections through 2026. We've also developed online CTE resources and career awareness activities for middle schools, as well as personal finance curriculum. Districts can now offer personal finance or financial literacy as part of a program of study or pathways. We also assist districts in aligning computer science instruction and state-approved standards. There is also a dedicated computer science webpage with guidance and resources, including the Computer Science State Plan, reporting guidance, and our position statement as well. In collaboration with the Department of Labor, the CESDE developed a curriculum of work-based learning opportunities, including cooperative work education, pre-apprenticeship, supervised agriculture, and unpaid experiential learning experiences. We understand the importance of collaboration with key partners. We partner with the Regional Education Service Centers, known as RESCs, Workforce Development Boards, CT State, the technical high schools, and the Manufacturers Collaborative to highlight and support Connecticut's top occupational goal areas. Our work with the New England Pathways Initiative promotes cross-border collaboration, policy reciprocity, and data sharing, as well as research aimed at career pathway development and expansion. Again, to learn more about any of these programs and more, please look at the document dropped in the chat and follow the embedded links. I will now hand over the baton to my colleague, Karen Amaker, Director of Workforce and Career Readiness.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Commissioner Russell Tucker mentioned, we were able to send out a survey before the end of the school year to really assess what is happening in our school districts. And some of the data you'll see today and that I'll share in terms of preliminary results indicate that there are amazing things happening in our districts. We understand that there's always room for growth, and we want to expand upon the opportunities that we're creating and in partnership with our districts. But I'll show you a little bit about share with you a little bit about what's going on right now. Next slide. So we had about a third of our districts responding to our survey before the end of the school year. And we were looking again to see what is in existence in terms of work-based learning, career-connected learning, as well as pathways. And what we found is that over 68% of our respondents begin pathways, or students are able to select a pathway as early as their 9th grade year. And so that's very significant information, and that we're saying that our students should be ready, should not wait until they're in 11th and 12th grade to begin that work. So this is very exciting information. We also noticed that about 16% of respondents said that pathway selection begins as early as middle school. So that's an area that we want to increase awareness, but also make sure that students have access to pathways, career-connected learning as early as middle school, if not before then. In terms of dual enrollment as part of a pathway, and you'll hear a lot more about dual enrollment expansion and creation from Ajit shortly, we learned that there are districts that have dual enrollment as part of the career pathway. And this is distinctly different from just having dual enrollment above and beyond or separate from a pathway. So 15% of our districts right now offer dual enrollment courses. However, 70% offer the option for students to take a dual enrollment course or courses as part of the pathway. And again, 11% of our districts right now do not have dual enrollment courses as part of a pathway, given that we have earmarked such funds, $5.5 million, to expand and create opportunities. We're certain that that number will increase. Related to college credit and industry recognized credentials, we want to make sure that pathways are not just standalone, that they are connected to career connected and work-based learning opportunities. So we asked districts to detail what programs they have in existence and whether or not those programs actually result in a license, certificate, or industry recognized credential. And so we want to spend some time with our districts and making sure that we partner with industries to increase those numbers significantly. Next slide. Career clusters. As you know, Connecticut has aligned with 12 of the 16 career clusters. we found that 81% of our districts offer STEM pathways. So we're going to do a deeper dive as to what that looks like. Does it include healthcare? Are we looking at computer science and information technology? So we want to explore that further. 60% of our districts offer education and training pathways. Given that this is a priority for the State Department of Education and the governor, we want to make sure that those numbers are increasing and that there are monies earmarked to include additional offerings. And then 22% of our districts offer transportation, distribution, and logistics. So again, we'll increase those numbers as well by providing technical assistance. When we look at pathways, we also want to make sure that work-based learning and career-connected learning are embedded into those pathways. And so opportunities for workplace tours and field trips, job shadows and mock interviews, career-related volunteering, as well as paid internships and pre-apprenticeships are very, very important, as well as career mentorship. So we have numbers on that. We expect those numbers to increase as we receive more feedback from our districts. And then looking at where partnerships exist. A pathway is not as robust as it could be, unless there is a higher ed partner, as well as community and industry partnerships. So 30% of our districts are reporting that they partner with both their workforce development board, as well as their chamber of commerce. Some have partnered with either or entity, and so we want to make sure that we're increasing those numbers. We have, of those reporting, 22 institutions of higher education, 11 of our 12 community colleges, there's partnerships there. And we know that with more reporting, we'll have additional reports of partnerships with community colleges. And 3 out of the 4 state universities are also partnering with districts. In terms of industry, the list was exhaustive. And so I've included just a few here: Bank of America, Electric Boat, Sikorsky, our healthcare institutions, engineering institutions, and such. I can't see the bottom, but what we know in terms of outcomes, we asked districts to report on their exemplary programs, their exemplar programs. And so our students are graduating high school with certifications in EMT, CNA, OSHA, as well as ServSafe certifications. And we also know that our students are graduating with college degrees through the P-TECH school, high school. And so there's lots of great things happening within our districts. Next slide. So what do we need to do to make sure that we are moving the needle forward on this work? We will engage the remaining districts to make sure that we have over 100% survey completion. We're going to use this data to develop and expand workforce and career readiness initiatives in all of Connecticut districts. We want to continue to collaborate with our districts to assess their needs and provide the necessary technical assistance to expand upon what they're already doing. And then we want to partner with our workforce development boards to increase school and industry partnerships. And lastly, we want to, through our dashboard that will be created, elevate the outstanding work of our comprehensive high schools and school districts by really showcasing what's happening currently and also as a part of our initiative to expand opportunities for all students. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ajit to talk about dual enrollment.
Great, thanks, Karen. Ajit Gopalakrishnan here, Chief Performance Officer from the Department of Education. I'm going to share a little bit about our dual credit expansion grant, but just to lay the groundwork, why dual credit? Why are we focusing on this? Clearly, the Workforce Council's own strategic plan from 2020 talks about the importance of post-secondary work. And then, this was part of our press release when we announced that investment. And, expanding into dual credit is a smart investment. Dual credit is a bridge for our students from our public school system to the higher education system. And just to be clear, when we say dual credit, it can be a dual enrollment course, which means it's taught by a college faculty at a college campus, or it could be a concurrent enrollment where it's taught by high school faculty. The course is aligned to the college credit. And students actually, either way, students get college credit on a college transcript when they're in high school. And another important point, when we say dual credit or college credit, this doesn't necessarily mean traditional academic pathways, though that's definitely on the table in terms of taking a biology course towards a biology bachelor's degree program. But it could also be career-oriented pathways where you take a course, let's say in machine technology, a 4-credit course at a community college, a CT state institution, that is part of a advanced manufacturing machine technology pathway. So it could really be, the content can be quite varied. So we've been doing a lot of work in strengthening our partnerships at the department. We have a post-secondary success work group that includes a variety of different institutions, both on the higher ed side, K-12 side, as well as several partner organizations. We've also set up a dual credit website that provides information about the institutions of higher education that are partnering to address some of the key barriers that our districts actually say about challenges with student enrollment around eligibility, getting high school teachers credentialed to teach the courses, credentialed by the college to teach the courses such that they are credit worthy, and then also the registration process and the fees. So what does dual credit look like in terms of data? You know, and here I have to give a shout out to all the IHEs, CT State, the 4 CSU institutions, University of Connecticut, and several private institutions, and especially working through CCIC, Connecticut Conference for Independent Colleges, providing us student level information, student level data on every course that a student is taking in grades 11 and 12. At least that's our accountability measure, looking at what courses they're taking in college for dual credit. And what we see is that about 17,500 of our high school students in 11th and 12th grade are taking dual credit classes, and that amounts to roughly 35,000 course enrollment. So that's a lot of activity. The bulk of the activity currently is happening with the University of Connecticut and CT State, but as you'll see in the upcoming slides, that it's expanding with the other institutions as well. What's not in this data, and just in the interest of time, I didn't include a separate slide on this, but there are, as we've seen with some of our other data, there are disparities in terms of who's accessing these courses. You know, and you see underrepresentation when it comes to students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, et cetera. And some of the work we're doing is tackling those challenges head on, and you'll see some of that. So what is happening currently? And these are some of the types of courses in a wide range of pathways that we see. You know, in the case of the left-hand side has courses that UConn offers for dual credit, and you can see some of those examples. It can be courses like calculus and statistics, but also EMT training or medical terminology type courses. And then on the right-hand side, you see some of the courses that our high school students are taking when they're in high school with CT State. And so there's a lot of activity going on in a wide range of career clusters here, you know, automotive, manufacturing in terms of like blueprint reading or machinery milling or lathe bench work, et cetera, or high tech like programming, logic, Java, Python, mobile design, web design, et cetera. And these are courses that are based in pathways in most cases that our students are taking in high school and earning those college credits. So let's take a look at the grant program itself. And the grant program hasn't closed yet. It's closing July 28th. So as of July 17th, we have 78 districts that have applied and requesting about $3.7 million to expand their partnership with the colleges. And I'll give you some examples of what that looks like. And these funds are designed for startup costs. I just want to be clear on that, because the startup cost is the curriculum work, the planning work, the time for the college faculty and the high school faculty to work together to make sure that the course has the sufficient content and the rigor, or that the teacher actually gets the requisite credentialing needed at the college to be worthy of teaching that course at the high school. So it's really going for planning, but it's also going to support some equipment purchase at some of our high schools so that they can offer that really hands-on experience right in the high school for our students. So what are some examples of these types of ideas being proposed? And these are just examples. Again, there are many, many other ideas even within each of these districts. This is just a sample. So Ansonia is working with University of Bridgeport on a exercise science and personal training courses that actually lead to a personal trainer certification and a NASM certified personal trainer or strength conditioning coach certification. Bristol is working with CT State, the Manchester campus, to build a culinary pathway that results in a ProStart certification in culinary arts. Clinton, Meriden, and several other districts are working with Goodwin on a manufacturing pathway. Let's see, Colchester This is an interesting one. They're working with Charter Oak College. Their local fire chief is going to get certified by the Department of Education, and then they're going to teach this fire safety course that's articulated through Charter Oak that's going to lead to EMT and fire certification. East Lyme is working with UConn and part of their EMT course to build a EMT certification that results in a National Registry EMT exam and a certification. And they're actually using some of their funds to buy a power stretcher at their high school and set up a room where students can actually learn the requisite skills and, again, earn college credit at the same time. East Hartford and Wethersfield are working with Central, and a few other districts too are working with Central on an education pathway and including education in a multicultural society type courses in their high school, so students can take those courses and get college credit. Griswold is working with Southern on courses that are of very high interest to students, intro to esports, computer science, and then a program on drone technology, which I know is of huge interest in the state as well. Newtown is working with Central on digital technology. Seymour working with CT State on expanding their manufacturing to really make their pathway complete. They already offer 3 courses, but now they'll be able to offer the 4th one. And when students finish this pathway in their high school, they're a third of the way towards the advanced manufacturing and machine technology certificate. Region 8, which is the RAM, Hebron, Andover, Marlboro area, is building a business pathway with Eastern. Advance, which is the regional service center in the Northwest region, is actually bringing together 7 districts in that area to work with University of Connecticut, with CT State on a bunch of different courses around English and math. And one of their challenges for their program is getting staff credentialed, especially to teach mathematics. And they're able to do that in partnership with CCSU, where teachers will take a 1-year graduate level math course that will make them eligible to teach the college math. So there are lots of different creative ideas in these applications that are really bringing together some interesting ideas. So how are folks using money? I mentioned the teacher and higher ed stipends. They're also paying for tuition reimbursement for their staff. They're buying equipment. And another big sort of challenge is actually educating families about this and educating students about why this is a really viable pathway to extend their work in high school and build that bridge to college. So what are some of the common themes that we're seeing? We're seeing that the ideas being proposed are student-centered. Our districts are listening to students and their interests. They're equity focused in that districts are really looking at their own disaggregated data in terms of who are the students who are participating in these dual credit courses now? Where are the disparities in student participation? And how can we help all students, especially students of color, those from low-income families, access these dual credit and industry pathways that actually get them to get them prepared for life after high school. These courses are industry aligned. They're really focusing on where the demand is, and they're results oriented in the sense that the grant is going to expect, because we get the data directly from the higher ed institutions, we will be able to track and see the increases in these dual credit participation across all our different groups. There's a lot of work to do ahead for us. Obviously, we have to scale this implementation and support our districts through this work, and we're going to be starting a community of practice. A big barrier that we haven't yet addressed, but we as a state really need to tackle is the fees that these courses cost. Some of them are $50 to $100. Some of them might be $150, maybe even $200 per course per student. Now, for some students, that might be okay, but for a lot of students, especially if you have multiple children in high school at the same time taking these courses, it can add up quickly. So there are several other states that actually provide subsidies at the state level for these types of courses, such that these are not a barrier for our students. So as a state, we might need to really think strategically about that and invest in that on an ongoing basis. Now, we're incenting the startup work and the development work, but we really need to think about how we support this ongoing cost, because these students actually get registered with the college and get a college ID and get a college transcript when they're in high school. We also have to ensure the ongoing quality of these dual credit offerings. While that's happening to some degree now, we really need to strive towards some type of accreditation, and there are some national bodies on that. So we're going to be working with our higher ed partners and supporting that work and supporting them through that. And we will be increasing at the department. We already have some reports, and I'll throw some links in the chat when I'm done. We already report on this, but we'll be breaking down sort of the course level so that you can actually see which district is partnering with which college and what types of courses, because that really can be revealing information. So, Commissioner, I'll turn it back to you. That concludes my piece, and so you can bring us to a close here.
Thank you, Ajit and team, and I think we did that within the time that we were supposed to, so thank you very much for doing that. But I do hope for our members and those participating that it gives you a sense of the variety of things that are actually occurring in our system. Certainly have room for improvement, open to, I know things were going in the chat, how we can continue to bolster the work that we're doing, but at least hopefully this level set for us, kind of where we are, and give us a sense of where we need to go. And we'll continue to use this venue to provide information, share what's going on, where the opportunities are, where the challenges are. So together, with one state, one voice, moving in this direction, that we can achieve what we set out to do together. So thank you very much. I will turn this back to Mark or Kelly, who's going to take us to breakout.
I just wanted to, Kelly, before I hand it over to you, just thank Commissioner for that excellent report, and just say that it really is a great kind of setup for the discussion we're going to have on the career pathways kind of pillar, breakout. So it's really important input to our kind of strategic plan. So thank you so much. Thank you for that good work in terms of, doing the survey and really collecting all the data on where we stand right now too. And the grant efforts are really very encouraging as well. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kelly to introduce the breakout groups.
Excellent. And again, thank you to all of our speakers today. Great information, and love all of the comments in the chat. So continue to use the chat as we move into breakouts. We're going to use the next 40 minutes to do kind of a deeper dive into some of the topics that we've heard about today. There'll be a lot of crossover in some of the types of questions that are going to be discussed in each of these breakout rooms. We encourage you to pick a breakout room that is of most interest to you, or to go someplace that you have not been to before and learn some new perspectives. So breakout room number 1 will have a discussion on career pathways led by Commissioner Russell Tucker. And I believe that Chancellor Terrence Chang it will be also included in that breakout, discussing more information around pathways. Second breakout is around regional sector-based training. And we're excited to have Sean Coyne, Vice President of Human Resources from Electric Boat, having a conversation about the work that they are leading in Eastern Connecticut in partnership with the Eastern Workforce Investment Board, led by Michael Nogello, and with CT State, led by President John Maduco. And then third, we will have an industry leadership discussion. And this discussion will really be around career pathways and regional sector partnerships, and how industry can get involved, and some of the things that industry needs to think about as they're engaging in this work with their academic partners. And that's going to be led by Jeff Auker, Associate Vice President, Head of Innovation and Delivery for Emphasis in Hartford, and from our chair, Mark Argosh, from the Governor's Workforce Council. So Laura's going to put up the breakout session rooms, and you can join which room you would like. And from there, if you have any technical issues, Laura will be able to get you to where you need to go. And this is also a good time if anyone needs to take a quick break and stretch their legs as people are moving into the breakout sessions. This would be a great time to do that as well. So thank you so much. And I look forward to joining you in a breakout room.
Looks like we're back for the most part. I know we had a really spirited, great discussion in industry leadership, but I'd like to turn it over to a couple of the other groups. Can we get a report out? We're going to do 5-minute report outs so we can share for the benefit of everybody kind of what some of the kind of key points kind of raised in those discussions or kind of, input into our planning. So let's go first to career pathways. Who would like to report out on the career pathway discussion?
Keith is going to do that for us. Keith?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Mark. We had a great discussion in the career pathways breakout and came to some really good conclusions. First of all, great things are being done in our districts. For example, Bridgeport is taking students up to Jackson Laboratories. Westbrook has over 200 industry partners already. And so great things are happening and they can be expanded within those districts. They can be replicated in other districts. One of the things we need to look at is expanding the definition of career pathways beyond traditional areas defined in Perkins 5. And we can do this as part of the new GWC plan as well that we're going to be announcing in October. We also need to further our dual credit offerings and access. We touched on the topic of the $5.5 million grant that my colleague and friend Ajit Kapala-Krishna described earlier. And this is terrific because it provides funding for startups, for the expansion and beginning sometimes of plans within the districts and programs. But we also need to really dedicate some money towards helping students cover the fees. And it's terrific to have these programs, but for many students, a $75, $100, $150 fee is beyond their capacity to be able to afford to take advantage of them. So we really need to start exploring the options for continuous funding. And this is really going to increase not only access, but equity of access to make sure that all of our students, no matter their background or the district they come from, have these opportunities available to them. We also talked with one of our fantastic IHE presidents at the University of St. Joseph about efforts to help IHEs offer courses for teachers in our secondary schools to take in order to get them the proper credentials so that they can teach these college courses in our high schools, again, furthering the goals of the plan and opportunities for our students. And finally, we talked a little bit about how pathway development may actually be helping students keep on track towards high school graduation, and that's really the ultimate goal. So a good discussion, some key takeaways, and some good progress being made with some direction on where else to go next.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Let me just add, I'm sorry, I think you may have a minute, maybe a half a minute left, because I didn't want to leave on the table, as someone brought up, what was referred to as the soft skills that I said people are now referring to as human skills, to be able that our students really can navigate the world, regardless of what career path that they take and how important that is. So that was a part of the conversation here as well. And I'll end with, Ajit had a great analogy about the bridge and paying tolls on the bridge. It was really great. It was a great visual to think about, students getting a bridge to these different pathways, but if there's a toll there, they may decide not to take that bridge. That was really good, Ajit. I'm going to continue to think about that. So we're trying to make sure that there's easy pass, was what you mentioned, for all our students to get to where they want to go. So thank you all. It's a great conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we have somebody report out on sector training.
Sure, I'll take the first pass at it, and then my co-facilitators can add on to it. But we had a really great discussion. I think we could have talked for a lot longer. We talked about sector-based training, kind of focusing on short-term, demand-driven training programs, with, demand driven being really a key piece there, that, that's training that responds to employer pull rather than, push from either job seekers or education and training institutions. That allows, job seekers, including inexperienced job seekers in some sectors, to qualify for employment in a matter of weeks rather than months or years, and gives really a kind of a just-in-time solution for employers who need workers. Support services and stipends are a really key element to address barriers to enrollment and completion for a lot of students. And we talked about regional sector partnerships really as kind of the key driver of sector-based training programs. The kind of key partners being the public workforce system, contributing, a large number of job seekers and training resources and support services, education and training partners, and industry partners, including the unions. Some of the feedback from folks who have been really participating in RSPs, both for a long time and those who are newer to the process, is just really being patient, understanding that it is a paradigm shift, and that it takes time to phase up, and you're going to try things that's not going to go as well as you hoped at first, but just going to continue to listen to feedback from your employer partners and respond as well as you can and as quickly as you can. But that does take time to change those systems. We heard that, multiple training institutions possibly offering different curriculum for the same job can kind of cause angst for employers. So developing more consistency across providers, and, we think CT state consolidation offers real opportunities for sharing, definitely across the community college campuses there. And then just kind of contrasting, like in Eastern Connecticut, we've got the Eastern Advanced Manufacturing Alliance RSP, which involves Electric Boat as kind of the big anchor employer, and then, many smaller employers. When there's a really big employer in the room, it's kind of easier to follow what they're needing. But the RSP kind of provides a way for smaller employers to kind of join forces and make their voice heard by education and training providers in a way that it really can't be when it's just individual employers talking to education and training providers. And I think the last thing, just the importance of creating stacked credentials, especially in IT, that was noted. But short-term non-credit opportunities are great to get people to work as quickly as possible, but we also don't want to lose track of credit opportunities for those students.
Michael, thank you so much. Great points. Next, I'd like to turn to Jeff Walker to talk about the industry leadership breakout meeting.
Sure, thanks, Mark. Good discussion as always with this group. We really started with the idea and the question of, so how do we make the rubber hit the road? How do you cover that last mile between the training that we're doing and the jobs that we keep hearing are still out there? It really quickly honed in on work-based training as being the key. Senator Wang started off talking about the challenges in manufacturing, especially around small manufacturers, of the urgency to replace aging workers, sort of the loss of talent and experience is happening as people age out, and the importance of, especially in the trades, of having that transfer from the experience on. But we started looking at some of the challenges there. For a small to medium manufacturer, that's a big commitment to mentor an apprentice, to have an apprentice. And for one company to stand up and say, hey, I need one or two, that may not be the most efficient way. So Erica Smith and Alicia came up with, really kind of focused in on this idea that we don't have to go it alone. And the RSP, in any industry, and the RSPs really form a great conduit and assembly point for different employers. So maybe say in biotech, as is going on, you get a bunch of the different smaller employers together to band their needs for apprenticeships And then the companies and the, you know, as a whole, as a coalition, can come to the educators and the trainers and say, here's what we're looking for. And it's just, again, a much more efficient way of getting the talent and the skills into the workforce. There, you know, there's a lot of good work going on that came out. You look at the Met Lab in New Britain and the NAF-driven career pathway around, you know, around engineering. The RSPs can be a great conduit to both market and, you know, extract the value from all that and get the folks into, you know, into the workforce. And there's another theme that continually went through here is we need to focus on getting at the kids at an earlier age, at least middle school. One, that's where you get the excitement going. In IT, we see big breaks around, you know, 5th grade, 8th grade, you know, getting people exposed is where they get excited. But it also helps us track what's changing, what's coming, you know, how are, you know, the younger folks or the people re-entering the marketplace, you know, thinking differently. So the more, you know, the sooner and the wider net we can cast, earlier and wider net we can cast, we're actually going to learn more about, you know, what we need to be doing as RSPs to adjust, you know, our efforts. And kind of wrapping it up, we were thinking about, okay, so what are, you know, the goals? What are the KPI? How are we going to measure the success here? Again, there was a lot of turn back to that workplace learning, you know, facilitating and creating more and more apprenticeships across various industries. You know, getting really crystal clear on the needs of industry so that the educators and the trainers are, you know, performing to the up to the minute needs and, you know, the skills in the workforce across the different industries we're talking about here. And we need to track it. There's a lot of plans, there's a lot of work going on to, you know, really follow the impact of the work that's being done, you know, by everybody here and others to create these pathways, to create these capabilities, but we need to track them into the workforce and see, you know, how that's going, and then, you know, adjust and celebrate as we need to be there. And again, the RSPs keep coming up as that way that the businesses, you know, the like-minded businesses that have come together out of, you know, common need in the regions around specific industries, really, we should be taking it upon ourselves to aggregate our needs and our capabilities, especially to train these folks as much as possible, you know, to make it easier for the educators and the trainers to, you know, have a target-rich environment for their, you know, for the alum from their programs. Mark, did I miss anything? Anybody from our team?
Yeah, I think you hit the key points, Jeff. So thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody for their participation in today's meeting and for your valuable contributions to kind of the strategic planning process that we're engaged in right now. We look forward to seeing you at our next GWC meeting, which is in October. It's October 19th. It's going to be virtual. I hope you found today's meeting engaging and, you know, providing useful information. And we really welcome any feedback from any participants, either through the chat line or, you know, emailing us on how we can make these meetings, you know, even more useful. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your evening.